In one of the most dramatic legal battles yet between a former US president and the press, Donald Trump has filed a massive $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. The lawsuit alleges defamation and libel, and it could become one of the most closely watched media cases in American history. So what exactly is happening here? Let's break it down. Trump's lawsuit, filed in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida, targets not only the New York Times, but also 4 of its prominent reporters, and even the publishing giant, Penguin Random House. According to the filing, Trump claims the Times knowingly spread false information about him, in articles, editorials, and even in a recent book titled, Lucky Loser, How Donald Trump Squandered His Father's Fortune and Created the Illusion of Success. He argues that these publications were produced with what the law calls actual malice, meaning the journalists either knew what they published was false, or they acted with reckless disregard for the truth. The lawsuit goes further, saying that the damage wasn't just reputational. Trump argues that these reports directly hurt his businesses, his brand, and even the stock value of his company, Trump Media and Technology Group. He says the Times' reporting painted him in a false and malicious light, discouraging investors and creating long-term financial harm. For that, he is seeking at least $15 billion in damages. So what's the legal basis here? To win a defamation or libel case in the US, especially as a public figure, Trump must clear a very high bar. He has to prove that the statements were false, that they harmed his reputation, and that they were published with actual malice. Courts have long protected freedom of the press under the First Amendment, making it extremely difficult for politicians and celebrities to win such cases. This standard was set by a landmark 1964 Supreme Court case, New York Times v. Sullivan, which still governs most defamation lawsuits today. What might the New York Times argue in its defense? First, they'll likely claim their reporting is accurate and backed by documents, interviews, and sources. Second, they can argue that many of their statements were opinion or editorial judgment, which the law protects, even if the opinions are harsh. Third, they can challenge the idea that Trump's economic losses were caused by their reporting, rather than other factors, like market forces or his own actions. And finally, they may argue that some claims fall outside the statute of limitations, meaning they are too old to sue over. But beyond the courtroom, the implications are huge. If Trump were to win even part of this case, it could embolden other politicians and business leaders to sue the press more aggressively. Critics warn that this could have a chilling effect on journalism, discouraging reporters from digging into powerful figures. On the other hand, Trump and his supporters argue that the media has crossed lines for years and that accountability is long overdue. Politically, this plays right into Trump's narrative. He has spent years framing mainstream outlets as biased and untrustworthy, and this lawsuit gives him another stage to push that message. For the New York Times, the case is about defending not just their reporting, but the broader principle of press freedom in a democracy. So, what happens next? The Times and Penguin Random House are expected to file motions to dismiss, arguing that the lawsuit has no legal basis. If the case does move forward, discovery could get very interesting, with both sides forced to hand over documents, emails, and internal communications. A settlement is also possible, but given Trump's history, he may want a public fight to keep the spotlight. No matter the outcome, this case has already sparked debate far beyond the courtroom. Should public figures like Trump be able to sue news outlets over critical reporting? Or is this just an attempt to silence the press? One thing is clear. This isn't just a legal fight. It's a battle over the boundaries of truth, power, and freedom of the press in America. What do you think? Is Trump standing up against media bias? Or is this an attack on journalism itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns. Thanks for watching.